There are friends, there are people that I, in my lifetime, that will speak to this. When it gets to this point, like you guys probably already heard, and if you haven't, please look into this, because when you hear about the story about Bentley Miller, you could see the seriousness of Project Traffic Light. You could talk about all the things that are going on, no matter what. Since the internet, there's a whole slew of things going on. And honestly, we're probably just touching the surface on things. When it comes to snuff industry, to porn, to sexual abuse, to rape, to child abuse. I mean, there isn't enough people out there talking about it. And believe me, um, it's a danger. It's not only dangerous, it hits on every social economic level. And the extremes are is partaking in it. Do not partake in the sin. That's what the Lord said in the Bible. Sorry. Uh-huh. Do not partake in the sexual sin and the sins of the church and all that stuff. That's exactly what the Bible stated. Do not partake in it. Don't associate with it. Don't associate with all the problems. It's one thing to have a glass of wine. It's another to be drunk and belligerent and a moron. I waited tables long enough. I know there's a lot of people, they have to cut them right off. When I'm telling you somebody's drinking, cut them right off. Something as basic as just talking about something, like talking to friends, saying, hey, listen, I'm concerned about some things. I want to make sure that, we have a real thorough conversation when it comes to all these things. Dating's not the issue. Dating somebody who has a secret life, or in the closet about stuff, believe me, that's not to say that there aren't individuals that participate in like relationship stuff. What it says is that having an open, honest relationship means you can be trusted alone. You can be trusted around somebody. You don't have to fear for your life. You don't have to fear for your safety. You don't have to fear that somebody's going to beat up on one of your family members. Like, that's basic thing that is going on. When somebody's like doing something they're not supposed to do, or hurting somebody, we need to know. Now, do I think that every person out there is going to go out and do something? No. But I think when somebody's defensive and afraid, yeah, they're going to respond how they need to respond. It's a basic defense mechanism. When it comes to someone hurting somebody or doing something they're not supposed to do, that is absolutely important. I mean, there's no getting around the facts. When somebody's hurting somebody, somebody's hurting somebody. And there is a campaign on not just sexual abuse, but when we talk about, let me just say this, okay? When somebody says something they're not supposed to say to somebody, and you felt uncomfortable with something, say something. It's better to be straightforward and say, hey, listen, just because we don't have a relationship doesn't mean I can't respect you as a person. That's the kind of language you need to hear. You don't need to hear comments like you're worthless, you're nothing. This is what happens to children and women that have been victims of sexual abuse. I was verbally abused as a little girl. I mean, there were things that were said to me, and as a young woman, someone said things to me, like my dad said I was worthless, I was nothing. I mean, I heard a lot of nasty things. I mean, as much as I heard nice things, I also heard like really nasty comments about me. So I know when somebody is abusing me and saying things to me, initially, it's not that I didn't love my dad, because trust me, I love my dad. I just could not get along with my parents after a certain point. Like, you can't meddle in your children's lives that much. I mean, when kids have issues at home and they say things that are not appropriate, I mean, there are times I can definitely tell you I was wrong on a lot of things. When it comes to porn, and when it comes to, like, especially when there's porn around the house, and we have little boys, and I will say this, like my brother, same thing, like that, I think opened the doors to all kinds of things. Now, do I think that you have to live your life afraid? No, but I think it does intimidate, and it is intimidating when somebody brings porn in the house, and You know, a lot of insecurities come out, especially anxiety that typically we weren't comfortable with. When we go out to a restaurant, when we go out to dinner, and somebody says something about, like, hey, you're behaving a certain way. When I say that, I'm saying it in the nicest way possible. If you are going out there and shaking your booty and doing things around other kids, it'll give other people the impression that, like, hey, you're easy or you're this. And that's the wrong attitude a lot of people take. Let's talk about abortion. Let's talk about some other things. Most girls are too young to know better. Most girls, they think, well, they're just, they like a boyfriend. And when the boyfriend comes around and says, hey, he's not interested in you anymore, you're pregnant and you're on your own. Uh-huh. So there are situations that girls are put in that men don't give a crap. There's a lot of men that are completely in the wrong. Uh-huh. To me, if a man is going to give a girl money to go get an abortion, it's not all her fault. She's put in a really awkward situation. First of all, she's probably hurt. Men who hurt girls this way, to me, they're just not worth the time. They have pregnancy centers. There's places to get pregnancy support. There are girls that are upset. They're drinking too much. They get pregnant. And you end up in an abortion clinic. And I went to college with some friends of mine. And, I mean, we've talked about some things online when it comes to friends and feeling like your friends are trapped or don't have anywhere to turn to. To me, that pregnancy support, and especially abortion recovery, however we go about it, there are girls I went to college with that have lived with the scars of abortion. And I know we've been through a traumatic ordeal when it comes to a lot of abuse issues as well. So to me, it all comes to a head, especially this time of year, depending on birthdays, anniversaries. Some girls have lost children. I mean, there's a whole slew of things going on with girls. And it's so sad. It's so sad because the world out there is not always sensitive to what's going on. Not everybody knows everyone's story or experiences. To me, it's about sitting down and talking to this girl or this guy. And believe me, there's some decent men and young women out there that don't do that. They need to sit down at the table and say, hey, this is what happened to me, or write it. I mean, do an autobiography. Share your story. There are people out here that need to see something positive come out of a bad experience. I know there's a lot of people that make bad decisions. I know there's a lot of people out there, they probably thought to themselves like, hey, I couldn't believe this happened to me. There are a lot of people who've been through situations. I know this, what bothers me so much about what happened in my college experience is that I know girls that were struggling with decisions and probably didn't open up and share enough. And we were like that when we were younger. And now that I'm older, I realize like how important it is to talk to teenagers about like, making decisions. There's high risk behaviors nowadays with AIDS and STDs. I mean, to see the STD, to see how many kids come home with STDs or anyone, to me, there are a couple of things that come up. Like one, did you agree to this? Or, do you know anything about the person that gave you an STD? Do you know anything about it? Get tested. I mean, there's a whole slew of things going on. So it's just about being smart, paying attention, talking to your friends, not feeling like you're insignificant. Like there's a whole wealth of information out there. In fact, I'm sad. I'm sad that anyone felt hurt by anything. It saddens me because I realize that there are probably decent people out there probably didn't mean anything, but I'm pretty sure there's people that meant well. The idea that anybody sexually abused or hurt anybody, that's a whole different story. It is. It takes precedence over everything. On a superficial level, when family members don't come around, there are a couple things that go through my mind. Who said what and why? Why would anybody say these things and leave somebody on the street? Because I want to tell you guys what happened at Pizza Hut in 1990. Me and my brother went and got a job at Pizza Hut. And when you hear the story Pizza Sluts and Huts and Pizza Hut Sluts, you can basically get what happened to some of us when we were kids. Why people were trying to recruit kids because we were home alone, number one, and ask the Dormont police. I mean, you can basically get a better story about what the police and so many of the detectives that helped us when we were in junior high and high school. I mean, generally, what was going on in junior high and high school is that we didn't really understand. I just know when there's porn around, that was initially what was going on at home. I was uncomfortable with things because for obvious reason, there was porn. And I know there's a lot of drunk women and men out around us that need to get clean and get sober. Uh, there was a lot of porn around our house. There was believe me, when I was a little girl, there was way too much porn around. And that opened the doors to me. It opens a discussion though. And I can honestly tell you, the more you guys talk about porn, the more you explain to your kids about the impact that porn has, porn, drugs, AIDS, all of it. It doesn't need to be on your phone. You don't need to have your computer on at all. The only time, and I mean, when they say PG rated, screen everything. Read the panels on the drugs and medications. Don't just take someone's word for it. Make sure you read the fine print. Really, I mean, in all honesty, we would be here forever, but truthfully, we're not. I mean, I know life is short. But listen, I deal with kids that are in crisis too, and I've been in crisis as well. I know exactly what it feels like to be home alone and afraid. And one of the scariest things is coming home and walking in on a sex offender abusing children. I heard the screams. I know what it was like. Luckily, my uncle Izzy was there. Luckily, I thank God every day. So when I talk to people about what it's like to wake up and know what it was like those mornings and the panic that we lived with and the anxiety and I mean, stress was enormous. The distressing things that go on when you're trying to find out what happened to your kids or what happened. I mean, mom and dad, parents need to sit down and talk. They can't just go out there and assume that their kids know what they're doing. I mean, especially when we talk about kids and literacy issues, this is one of the first things that comes up, literacy. Most of them are not only have maybe a first grade education, if that. There's a lot of kids that are still traumatized by abuse. So they have to go to school. There's a truancy issues that come up. And kids have to be at school. They got to know how to feed themselves and care for themselves. If not, because there's going to come a point if they don't know how to take care of themselves and they're left. It's called learned helplessness, and we're not going to teach our kids to be helpless victims out here. They got to get educated and go to school. Because that's the best way to overcome difficulty. One thing, get a skill in education, which you don't have to go to college. You can go to VOTech, you can go to beauty school, you can do what really, like things like this. Getting a career, not a job, not just a job, but a career that's going to pay bills, and then going out there and making friends and getting to know your community. The long-term relationships, two things that can save your butt, and I mean it. Get to know people around you, talk to people, ask questions, laugh, joke, go out to dinner, get a hobby. There are things you can do on your own free time. And no, and these comments that were made about suing people, to me, that's stupid. It is. There are so many things to do other than sue. We were joking around, actually. And I know that there's a lot of people say things, and I honestly do not respect anybody making sexually abusive remarks or comments that are unnecessary, and it happens too much. There comes a point when somebody says enough's enough, okay? So thank you for listening to our post. It's been an exhausting couple of days, especially because it's this time of year, and this is when some of us have been abused. Birthdays, holidays, really any day. It's really sickening. Thank you for listening.